Hello, you are listening to Called to Homeschool, episode number 300, World Schooling with Ariane Cameron. Ariane, I am so stinking excited to have you on my podcast today. Ariane has been in my membership for how long? It's been a long time.
Yes, it has been a couple of years at least, right?
Yes. So even though we've never met in person, I feel like I know her, right?
Yes,
You
yes,
start to feel
our
like
circles are connecting.
yeah. Oh, yeah. They really are. We'll probably cover that in the podcast. But I actually got to meet a different client that was in the membership for a couple years, and it was so fun because we met in real life, and it did feel like we'd been girlfriends for years because you just build quite a
Yeah,
connection. I feel like when you're coaching someone. So, anyways, thanks for being on here. So I am going to start interviewing different homeschoolers, and I want this to be so fun for you because Ariane's not promoting a product, not promoting a business of just like what homeschool looks like in traditional, average, different homes throughout America. Maybe we'll do some in people in different countries of what it looks like. But I just want you to see that homeschool is possible for anybody. You don't need, Ariane said before we started, right? You don't need a degree. You don't need any special superpowers or anything. So I'm really excited to do this podcast. So, Ariane, go ahead and just give us an overview of where you are, how many kids, how long you've been homeschooling, some of those fun things.
yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share. I'd love to talk about homeschooling because I'm
Yeah.
passionate about it. I have been married for almost 27 years. We have three children, all girls. Girl mom here. 15, 11, and 9. I've been homeschooling from the very beginning with my first, so 10 years now. And it is a way of life we would never change. Just absolutely love it.
Yes. Amen to that. Yeah, it does. And I think that's when I see people who can withstand, like, go the test of time, right? So, like, you're 10 years in, it's because you've made it a lifestyle. And that truly is the only way to make it enjoyable long
Yeah.
term. Okay, but like, let's go back to the beginning. And what made you decide to homeschool? So, you're a pre COVID homeschooler. So,
Yeah.
what made you take that plunge all those years ago?
Well, it was kind of interesting. My husband and I, we didn't have children until 11, 12 years into our marriage. And so we honestly didn't know if we were going to have children. And then once we did, it was just a natural progression where I quit working and I stayed home, much to my husband's nervousness, like, what? Now we're not a two-income family. I
Yeah.
took that leap of faith, saying, we'll figure it out, if we try to have these righteous desires to do that. And I loved being with my first child. I just loved it. And naturally, as a mom, you're teaching them things, using a spoon and how to say words and walking and all those little things you're showing them how to do. And I found great joy in it. And then as school age started approaching, I just really felt uneasy about putting her in just because of the things that I'm learning that are being taught in the schools, the environments, the peer influence, the lack of gospel centered curriculum, if you will. I
Hmm.
wanted I wanted her to be taught good things, and I just naturally started to do some work and study and research things. My husband was on board, and he was fully like, "Yeah, let's not even send her." And I was like, "Okay, I have no idea what I'm doing." And then by this
Yeah.
time, like, I'm pregnant with another kid, and you know all of the life things that are happening. But it was beautiful. And one of the greatest blessings I find with homeschooling is I get to be with my children when they have those synapses in their brain, when they connect a concept or they actually accomplish something, whether they can write their letters or they figure out a math problem and they get so excited, like, oh my gosh, I did it. It's with mom. It's not with anybody else. And it just solidifies that bond with, the child and the mother. And, you know, I think it's just totally different from my upbringing, whereas I had public school or teachers and things like where I bonded with them because I had those moments with them, in my English classes or whatever, whatever it was. And I just love that it's now I get to do that with my children. So,
Oh, I love that. And it's so interesting too because, like your oldest is 15 and so you haven't had anybody leave the nest now, but like someone who's had 4 kids leave now, it went so fast,
yes,
right? And
it's
like
it,
I can't fathom if I didn't get that time with them. Like
yes, yes. Absolutely. Because, and it's interesting because we've done it for 10 years and we've had to adapt and change as they grow,
Hmm.
as they learn, as they're discovering new subjects and things like that. Whether we've been part of co-ops or online classes here and there, I've always done the primary educating. And my oldest is a freshman now in high school, and she decided she really wanted to do an online high school course through American Heritage School.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and she absolutely loves it. And we love it too because it's gospel centered. She has amazing mentors. Um, but I've had to mourn not having her in my little family school with her two young.
Yes.
It's like I'm used to teaching all three and we all talk and engage. And it's just all those things, we're thinking about the subject matter not just during class, but at dinner time, we're talking about it with dad. And then we see things when we're out and about and say, oh my gosh, look at that. And we connect it to what we talked about. I'm like, I don't have that anymore. So it's been a transition so far this year. But it's beautiful to watch her grow and progress.
Yes, I think my oldest was 15 when he started doing more independent work. He might have been, I'm trying to think, he actually might have been 16 because I was so not ready to let go. And then, but like everybody went a little bit earlier and I was like, what is going on? And so they're ready for that
Yeah.
independence and they're ready to take that leap. But it is a tricky transition.
Yeah.
Because my daughter who is 16, she was like, I'm going to homeschool the whole way through. Like, I love Well Educated Heart, and these are beautiful books, and I just want to be with you. And I was like, yes, yes, like let's do it. And then she hit 15, turning 16. She's like, actually, what I think I want to do. And it's like, no, don't
Right.
you want to hang out with me?
Don't
But
leave
so,
me.
yes, I love though that. But even though your 15-year-old is doing this online program, you have such a solid relationship
Yeah.
because of the time you've put in and during these adolescent years, right? Of just
Yeah.
like mom is the person you come to when things like I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and the foundation, and it's really kind of cool because even though she's taking classes from somebody else, we sit down before the week starts and we go through all, she brings up every assignment. We write down what else going to happen this week, and she budgets her time so she can say, okay, it's going to be a heavier week or it's going to be a lighter week or whatever. And then a lot of her classes incorporate parents, read
Oh,
this and send, read this with your parents and discuss this, and this, and then submit an essay about whatever. So I still feel involved, um, but it's definitely at a level that I don't think I could give her fully while doing the other two, my youngers.
okay.
I really think that having that environment to hear other opinions from other, students in her class and her mentors, and just diving deeper, she can do that within herself of like, okay, I'm really gonna go, we're talking about Les Mis, I'm really gonna dig in deep. And me, I'm like, oh, I can't do Les Mis.
Yeah.
That's dad's department. Whereas I was so
Yeah.
excited to do Hamlet with her. I was like, oh, let's watch this and let's do this and let's talk about this. And I helped her with the Hamlet section. But there's definitely areas where I love that she can go deeper than what I would have been able to give her.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I love too that you just said budgeting your time because like you still get I just talked to a homeschool mom the other day and she started when her kids were young as I think her kid did like first grade. And
Yeah.
she was like, we had to be in the car by 8 a.m. So that meant like the crazy hustle before. And then they were gone all day. And then the crazy hustle when they got back of homework, if you wanted to learn to do chores and dinner, and heaven forbid they'd be in one activity because like that's gonna take them everywhere. And so she just was talking about like that time with them. And so even though your daughter is in some classes, she still gets a majority of time being mentored by you, being mentored with dad, building the relationships with her sisters. And
Yeah.
so I love that.
Yeah.
That's so great.
And I don't want to teach high school math, so they can do it.
That's great. I was talking to a friend the other day too, as we were talking about something, and she's like, I'm a homeschool failure. I'm a homeschool whatever. And I go, no, you're intentional with your kids' education.
Yeah.
Because their kids honestly just do a couple classes at the local school. And so like she's still supplementing, she's still
Yeah.
getting time with them. And I go, you're just in charge. You're just like you didn't fail. It's just you're supplementing here, you supplement there, right? Like my kids have the speech and debate classes or the mock trial
Yeah.
classes. I don't mind math, right? So like but I know for somebody else, they're like, shoot me now, don't make me do math. Mine would be writing or something like that.
Yes.
Be like, that's for dad. Okay, this is so fun. So in the 10 years,
Mhm.
what like you've talked about a lot of the highlights and what you've loved, but what has been some of the hardest parts of your 10 years of homeschooling?
I think wanting to do everything.
Oh, oh my gosh, I feel that.
You know,
Oh, I
you want
feel
to give
that.
them all those opportunities that if they express an interest, or if they want to, learn this or learn that, or they want to be part of this group or that activity. And it's like, oh my gosh, we can't clone ourselves. Like, we have to choose between good, better, and best. Like, what do you really want to
Yes.
focus on right now? And then you multiply that by the number of children you have, as you can
Yes.
relate. And it's even harder because you're like, we don't have enough hours in the day. There's no way I can be in three different places right now, or whatever it might be. So counseling together as a family, like, what are we going to do? How are we going to use our time? We really were very, very busy. And then the last year and a half, we were like in Europe, and our lifestyle changed. The pace, the demands, all of those things totally like just came to a halt, and it was totally switched like a 180. And we learned some really beautiful things while we world schooled. And coming home, we've tried to bring some of that home so that we don't get caught up back into the cycles that we were in prior.
Oh, interesting. Okay, this is what I'm so excited to talk about with Ariane is why in the world, first tell everybody why in the world you guys went to Europe in the first place.
Yeah, so I it's really kind of funny because we take our kids traveling. We just do. We are just that family. The kids have been to like almost every state. They've been to Canada, Mexico, Dominican Republic. They've been all over. I just love to travel. I feel alive when I travel because all of my senses are, on, and I get to experience everything. And I think it's one of the best ways to learn anything is to be in the moment in that environment. And so traveling was nothing new. And I kept like kind of saying to my husband, I really would like to take the kids to Europe. I really would like to take them. 23 years ago, my husband and I backpacked Europe for
Oh,
a month
okay.
or so before we had children. And it was really fun. And we've always talked about wanting to go back. And he has a job that did send him to Europe several times, in Australia and things. And so a couple times I got to go with him, particularly Germany, and I loved it. I had my mom and my sister watch the kids for a week. I went with him. He went to work. I went and I played. I was eating pretzels and taking trains to places and looking at castles, and I just played. And it was like what I needed to fill my cup, because at
Right.
the time the kids were little and it was very exhausting. And so I kind of felt like I want to go back. I want to take the kids, and just monetarily and time wise, with the demands of all of our activities, I was like, I don't know how that's ever going to happen. And then I just kind of kept saying it, like, I really want it to be. So I don't know if I've manifested it or what.
Yeah.
I said it enough so my husband could hear it. He came and was like, you know what? My company, they need some help in Europe, and maybe I could propose that we go over there, maybe for like 3 months or something. And I was like, ding, 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 yes, yes, please. He's been listening. He's
Yeah.
an opportunity. And so he presented it, and then he came back. He said, well, they approved it, but they want 12 to 18 months. And I was like, what? I was thinking 3 months, one season of clothing and luggage, that kind of thing. But I was like, I can do this. We can do 12 to 18 months. And so he went over before we did, because we had to kind of wait for visas and stuff. So he was back and forth for about 6 months. And then once we got ours, we got to join him. And so it was a work related thing. And it was so amazing. If it hadn't been a work thing, I don't think we would have been able to make it happen. But we kind of, with homeschool wise, the children still did their math and their language arts. And we did some reading, and we did still like vocab and things like that. But I definitely kind of like paused any of our regular studies, from
Yeah.
geography, history, literature, art, science, music, all those things, because I was like, we're going to experience them instead of just read about it in a book. And while we were there, we got to visit 36 countries.
Oh
And
my goodness.
it was crazy because
Because did you get an EU visa or just
so
a
it was
Germany
a special
visa?
one with like it was like through Germany, because we weren't doing anything with like their government as far as like
Okay.
paychecks or healthcare. Everything was US. It was just a
Okay.
US contract within it. And so, but we were in and out of Schengen, if anybody knows about all that stuff. So we were in and out, but we wanted the flexibility to go with my husband because even though he had employees in Germany, he had an office in Lyon, France, and employees in UK, and an office in Sofia, Bulgaria. And so we wanted to be able to be flexible to go with him. And um, we kind of had our base, but then we would take trips
Yeah.
based on, what our availability was or what his work things were. And it was so much fun. So I love that my children, okay, so I'll say one of my favorite things was them connecting what we've studied to the
Yes.
real thing in real life. And as a mother, to see what sparked them, I was like, I would have never thought being in Bayeux, France, northern France, up near Normandy and all that,
Mm.
that the Bayeux Tapestry Museum, I don't know if that's the whole William the Conqueror, it's that woven, I don't know, 30 yards of the story
Okay.
of him becoming William the Conqueror, like being the leader. And it's all crocheted and it's in a dark room and it's almost like a long scroll that's made out of like cloth. And it tells the story. And at the bottom, there's some little writings that are hard to read. So you have like an audio guide. And we went to do that because I was like, oh, we've studied this. This is kind of cool. And for at the time, my middle was like 9 or
Hmm.
10. Anyway, she was totally fully in, like, I can't walk away. Like I was like, well, we kind of need to hurry because we're gonna also hit church this morning, but we had to hit this museum before because the time
Yeah.
frame, right? And she was like, no, mom, I still have like this many more panels to go. I've got to, like, she was just like totally encased in this whole experience. And I was like, I would have never thought that child would be so into this Bayou tapestry, but she's
Yes.
like alive, and it was amazing to see that. Just all these little things that we went to Pompeii, and that was kind of a bucket list for my oldest. So we went down there, and they were just enthralled walking through these streets and seeing like the concrete bodies and seeing the homes and the tiles. And it was amazing, So like just seeing what sparks their interest and connecting things. We got to go to Coburg, Germany, and there's a castle there that Martin Luther hid out in when
Mm.
he translated the Bible. And the kids were like, "Oh my gosh, this is like," they connected it. And there was like Lucas, oh, I can't think of the last name right now. The artist that's really famous for drawing him, Martin Luther. They've got
Okay.
the paintings on the walls and stuff, and like they're like, oh my gosh, I've seen these before, and just all these the moments where they just connect dots. That it wasn't a story just in a book that mom told us about, or something we looked up on the internet. It's like it really happened. We got to go to Harlem and go to the Corrie ten Boom home,
Oh, I wanted to do that
the
so
hiding
bad. We
place.
didn't have enough time.
It's so cool. You should definitely put it on your list.
Yeah.
But it was so cool. Their tour was amazing. And as a small group in this room, the guide said, you know what, they would ring a doorbell downstairs, buzz, and everybody in the house would have like within like 15 seconds, 20 seconds to get their stuff and get into the hiding spot before, somebody would come in. And so she sent my daughter down, rang the doorbell, and everybody was watching, and she had to run up through the house and get into the thing like we saw to see if she could do it in time. So like those little things are more synapses happening in their brain that she's going to remember that. It just really connected and solidified that story that we read about. And so just so many little tender mercies where it was just awakening in your soul. Like it was so fun.
Yes. Well, I got to take my daughter, I guess it would have been 2023, the fall of 2023, and we got to
Yes.
go to Germany.
Yeah.
And my brother was living in Berlin, and we got the grand tour because he'd been living there for a while, and he was retired military, and so he loves to study World War II. And it was so neat because we had done a deep dive of World War II and the Cold War, right?
Yeah.
And so we had the wall and what that meant, and like we'd read stories about it, and to actually touch it. And then my brother was, because he's military probably too, was like, this is where this happened. And this is where, like, he would take us to bridges, like prisoner exchanges happened here. So not just Checkpoint Charlie, but that
Yeah.
was still neat. But like bridges where they're like, this is where they did it secretively. So people couldn't see them exchanging prisoners, right? And
Yeah.
obviously a concentration camp, which is
Yeah.
Probably the hardest,
Mhm.
saddest place ever that is almost feels like sacred ground. Like
Yes.
people whispered and didn't talk and but how humbling to be there. Because I don't know, I feel like everybody has studied parts of the Holocaust or understanding it, but to actually have your kid in there
Mhm.
and to walk through the rooms or see the ovens or see the like the terrible conditions
Yeah.
and just both of us just left like, oh wow, like this is intense. This is heavy.
Yes, that and like exactly what you're saying. Like we went to Dachau, and I think I
Yeah.
probably got a lot of weird side eyes that you have children here.
Yeah.
But before I left, we had done a deep study of modern history, World War II and World War I, and all these things. Because I'm like, my children are going to walk these places, see monuments. I want them to have the respect for these things and
Yes.
know the weight of what they mean, so they can have a reverence for what has happened here. And so we did do that. And like before we left, I even took my children to there was a new Holocaust museum that opened up here in St. Louis, and I was like, let me just test the waters and see how they
Okay.
react. And of course, I prepped them before we went in, and I said, there's going to be pictures, and once you see a picture, you can't unsee it. And so, if things don't feel good, it's going to feel funny because of the things that happen, and we've talked about that. And there's bad things that happen, make people make poor choices, and it does affect other people. But just let me know, and I'm going to also kind of walk ahead of you and say, let's steer clear of this display, and let's
Yes.
display. So like I had done that, and I think I was more impressed with my children of how they took it in. They didn't see the gore. I mean, like obviously you're going to see like dead bodies or this or that, but and they've seen some of those pictures because sometimes you just can't. But I think it just brought a whole sense of, wow, this is big. This is important. This is heavy. So when we went to Dachau, we did the same thing, but I just wanted to prep them before we came so they
Yes.
understood it. And one of my younger ones was like, why are we going to a concentration camp? It's sad. And, why do we want to look at, and I said, well, it's more of a paying of respects to the
Mm.
people that suffered so much. And to remember that even out of all this bad, there were still good things that happened. Some people did really amazing things, like the Corrie ten Boom story or something like that. And just to show them that even though in a world of bad things, poor choices, there is always going to be good, and you have to decide where you're going to be no matter what comes. And so we
Yeah.
we definitely did that. But like you said, it's just so fun to connect books to real life, and we also did a huge kind of dive into our family history.
Oh,
We
okay.
were able to connect it on another level than just this happened here or this happened there, and we studied it. But like we were actually the town we lived in, the same ward boundaries, if you will, or like region, parish boundaries, if somebody wants to say that.
Yeah.
This town next to us was part of that. And it was my third great grandmother. She lived there. So we got
Oh
to
my
go to the
goodness.
church that she was christened in. And I've been struggling to find some family history on her. And the records are not released for our ancestry stuff. And I was able to get an appointment with the Catholic Diocese, the records in Freiburg. Went down, a lady helped me. I learned so much. And then she's like, oh, well, you really should go to the immigration office or, see if you can find her immigration stuff. And that was in the town we were living in. I'm like, this is not a coincidence. Like, this is so
Yes.
cool. Other things like on my mother's side, um, my seventh great grandfather was imprisoned in a castle in Switzerland. He lived there, but he was imprisoned for being a Mennonite. And so
Oh,
we
okay.
went to the castle and we walked into that dungeon, and just to feel like, I had an ancestor here that was put in jail for the way he wanted to have a relationship with God. Like, how is that? Like that's wild. But, we learned his story that he got out kind of on a fluke. This guy came through town and said he should be released. And they said, you can be released if you take your family and never come back. So they went up to
Yeah.
Germany, then they connected with people in Netherlands and went on a merchant ship to Pennsylvania. And so if he had never been imprisoned, they would have never come over to America. And then, a few generations later, found the church and so forth.
Yeah.
And so, like, just walking in that dungeon, I'm trying to explain to the girls, okay, so it would have been cold, it would have been damp, there would not have been the nice lights up.
Yeah.
It would have been very meager, if anything. He was naked, and here are the chains on the wall. Like, to feel and walk in his footsteps. It's so crazy. My grandmother's brother served in World War II, so we got to go
Okay.
to a bridge that was exploded. Like, I actually watched an old movie with him before we left and said, "This is the bridge." And then I took him and we stood there and looked at where it was. So it was just really kind of fun to connect family history with it as well.
Oh, that's so neat. So I want to talk about too. I remember there was because your girls were heavily involved in a lot of activities. What opposition did you face from them about moving away for a year?
Well, when we told them, we thought they would be excited, but they said we were ruining their lives.
Yeah.
So I think the time period of my husband being over there and coming back and forth was a nice buffer. I would sit down and show them pictures of when Dad and I, backpacked Europe, and here's some pictures of the last time I was over there. And we watched a lot of like Samantha Brown and Rick Steves videos and says, look at these places we can go, and look at this, and all these things, and what would you like to do? And so, we tried to, once we got there, yeah, they started to really adapt. It's amazing that children can do so much like that. We had a ward family, our church congregation, that was just amazing, absolutely amazing, and took us in. And I mean, I'm on all these expat groups and all these
Yeah.
world school groups, and I'm always watching and what museums are good, or what's this or that. And I was taking notes and stuff. But the number one question on those expat things is, I am so lonely. How do I find friends? And I felt like we never felt that, because we actually
Oh,
had a ward family, a church family that they were just amazing. And in addition to our travels, we went to other congregations of our faith in, like,
hmm.
sacrament meetings everywhere. We went to 22 different sacrament meetings in 12 different languages. And it
Oh,
felt like
that's
home
neat.
everywhere. We also got to go to 10 different temples and do family names. So that
Oh,
was
wow.
it was such a cool experience. And then really funny is the world feels so small, because everywhere you go, you meet somebody and they know somebody, or just walking through the streets in Venice, and we're seeing a missionary, a young man, and his parents. He's on his way home, and so you stop and you talk. And then we were standing in Milan, about to go in to see the Last Supper, and a guy standing next to me, and we started chatting, and he's in the stake next to mine here in Missouri, and he lived in the town that we lived in Germany on his mission, and he went
Uh-huh.
to BYU. And I was like, oh my gosh, why don't we know each other? We've like crossed paths so many times. So like those
Yes.
little things where, you run into the sister missionaries in Helsinki, or just all these
I was
like,
going to say, and the missionary in, so this is our
yes.
little thing of, so my nephew was serving a mission in Germany at the same time as Ariane. And I think he posted like, I'm coming home. And then
Yeah.
Ariane commented on it, like, we love you so much. And I was like, hold up. How in this world is my nephew and Ariane? So tell, like, how did you run into him?
So he was actually serving in our ward, and it was interesting
Okay.
because he was there for, I don't know, it seemed like 3 months. Like, there were so many transfers, and they stayed. It was some elders and some sisters. So if we had 4 missionaries in our ward, and they were there for quite some time. And my youngest turned 8 while we were there and had her baptism. And so he actually translated our entire baptism. He'd been to our house so many times for meals, and my husband found out he dated, I think, one of his aunts, went on a date with her. So I don't
Oh,
even know if you knew
okay.
that.
I
Another
didn't know that
connection.
part.
I'm not sure who it was, but he's like, oh, I
Okay.
think I went on a blind
I
date
could
with
ask
her.
my sister.
Yes, ask her. But like, it was just so fun. So we really got to know him and the other missionaries that were in our ward that time. And again, it just felt, because we were like expats and they're American, and the sisters were actually Australian, but it was so fun because we had that connection to home. And so when they come over, I am not making Spetzel and Schnitzel. I am
Yeah.
making something American, as close as I can. And so I think it was just a nice thing just to be able to, enjoy a soda, an American soda, a root beer that we bought
Yeah,
we spent way too much money to get it, but it was just so fun
right.
because I'm like, you'll appreciate this. We can share this with you.
You know,
So
I've only been able to take the one daughter over there, and then we've tried to travel a little bit as a family, and I'm taking another daughter over there soon. And but to me, it's this appreciation and love for other people. Right? So like we've read so many books. We like so many books, right? And then you go over there and you meet the German people, or you meet my husband goes to Africa a lot, right? And he's just like, oh, the Kenyans, oh, the people from DRC, right? And you just start to love them. So I love like the world school experience because to me, the world just feels nicer and happier when you get to know people's story and you just go in without this biased opinion of like, oh, this country stuck up or these type of people are rude or whatever it is, but just like where's the beauty in their culture. And I think that's what a part of Well Educated Heart I really love is that love and that beauty of the different types of people and their stories.
yeah,
And so, like, when we did World War II, right, it wasn't just Hitler and it wasn't just the concentration camps, but people like Corey Ten Boom or other amazing stories, Viktor Frankl, or just different other stories of people doing the best they can for their families and just falling in love with a culture, with the people. And then when you go over there and your kids get to see it, we went to Munich, right? And it was it's not it was an Oktoberfest, but the restaurant like kind of recreates an
yeah,
Oktoberfest. So you're sitting at humongous picnic tables with complete strangers and super loud. I don't think it's polka, but like polka type music,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And my daughter and I were the only ones in the whole restaurant without beer, and everybody was getting a huge kick out of that. And it's just like it was this loud and fun. And I just thought this is so beautiful. So many people were in their is it their not what is it called? Their lederhosen,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
the drindles for the
Journals,
girls.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, and so I just thought I just like, we've studied this, we've looked at pictures of this, and now we get to experience it, and instead of an attitude where I think maybe if you hadn't prepared yourself, it could have been, like, mocking somebody's type
Yeah.
of clothing, right? Like, "That's weird," or
Yeah.
like, "Why are we doing it this?" But instead it was like, "We know this is beautiful, this is wonderful," and so I think with world schooling too is it just helps you to love at a greater level because now you've met these people.
Yeah.
Now you've heard their stories, you've seen what's awesome, what's hard, all the things, and I can't help but fall in love with people the more I get to know them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say one of the biggest tips I would say is when you travel, try to find a local event to attend.
Oh, that's
Because then
fun.
you're with the locals. You're not just in the tourist hotspots. In Switzerland, we went to a little town called Charmy. In it was in September. Yeah, they have a thing called the Desalp, which means the cows come home for the season. So the cows are in the alpine pastures and they parade them down through town. They have big bells on their necks. They have crowns of flowers on them because they're celebrating this cow was a huge milk producer or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a whole festival and you're there with the locals. I mean, this is a little town. Every little town has it and they rotate which weekend in September. So if you're there in September,
Yeah.
find one and go. But they had the horns, they had the flag throwers, they had
Yeah.
horses that brought down huge wheels of cheese in these special harnesses. They had all these cheeses, like they had these little tents set up, and every family had their cheese, and they were all different. You could taste them all, and how your cow was in this pasture, and this one's in this one, and you could taste that. And they had this lodge soup, cute little display, and children were running it. All the signs were written in handwriting, and the children were dishing out the ladles of soup. And it was so fun to be a part of this. Like, these are the locals, these are the kids that go to school here and stuff. And those experiences feel so much more authentic than just, another walking tour. Even though
Yes.
walking tours can be really good to help you orient yourself when you first get to a place, and we did plenty. But I want to say, do the local things if you can find the local things. Um, One of the other things is when you're talking about connecting with the people. Um, we went to Bosnia and I can't even say it now, Herzegovina, whatever.
I
And
was just say sure.
but we went to we didn't go to the main city. We flew in more north to a place called Banja Luka, and it means Luke's bath, um, the saint. Anyway, so It was not a touristy place. They did not have a very established, they didn't have a metro. They had some buses, but still it was very rudimentary. And, they're not on the euro. So there are a lot of ATMs everywhere. But we got there and we did these really cool, like a boat ride on the river up towards the castle. And the boats are flat and long. And it's kind of like a gondola where they put a stick in, but their sticks are different because they're pointy at the end. They have metal because it's all rocky and you don't even, they have to stick them in the rocks and push. So we did this ride and I felt probably the most, I don't know what the word is. I stood out.
Yeah.
This American family walking around, and everyone was like kind of looking at you, and people would say, "Where are you from?" And they clearly knew we were from we were from
Yeah.
America, but we'd say, "Oh, we're from the United States," and their follow-up question was always like, "Why did you come here?" And I said, "Well, we're just showing our children the world and the beauty of the world and the beautiful people. We want them to see." And their response is always like, "You think we're still in a war?" Like that's the concept that most Americans think, oh, that's war torn, don't go to Bosnia. It was the one of the most beautiful places. It was like untouched because tourism isn't a big thing there and we didn't go to the touristy spots, but we had such a beautiful experience. We took the children one day to the local pool and they played in pools with all these Bosnian kids, like slides, and it was just we were just there with the people. And so those moments they're going to remember so much more than another museum. I mean, they did
Right.
amazing on museums. They're great. They're really well traveled. My youngest can find the way out or find any platform in a train station. And like
That's a great skill.
the skills that they picked up, I'm still blown away. Like these kids, I would not fear putting my 15-year-old on a plane and saying, "Go have fun in Europe." I know she could navigate any metro. I know she could figure out how to talk to the people she didn't know. I have no fears of sending her over there. And the safety is a whole nother level than in the United States. And so I think it's just fun how when we did come home, tears. The children did not want
Yeah.
to come home. Nobody wanted to come home. And it has been such a hard transition, very hard. And so we all are like, how can we get back? How can we get back?
What do
So,
you think has been so hard about the transition? Because they were so mad, like, "You're
yeah.
ruining our lives," to go, right? And then to come home, they're like, "Now you're ruining our lives again." Maybe they didn't say that.
No, but it's basically, why are you taking us home?
So, like, do you think it was I'm just guessing here, but, like, the family time, the less distractions, like, what do you think was so magical over there that
That's
they're
really,
missing?
that's a really good thing. I think family time was a huge one. So I'm definitely mourning that loss of not being with each other. We are with each other a lot. And
Yeah.
and when you travel, it can be stressful, right? And so we really found our groove, our niche as a family. Who leads, who guides, mom does the planning, dad pays for it. Like
Yeah.
we have our roles in it,
Yeah.
right? Older sister knows to make sure to check everything after we get off a train so we don't leave the Krispy Kreme donuts on it
Yeah.
like we did when we came back from Paris. We were so excited with
Yeah.
Krispy Kreme. But just like we found our niche and we had so much fun together and we experienced these little things that we're gonna have inside jokes forever. The
Mhm.
time that we went to Amsterdam on a bus at night, got it there in the morning to see the Tulip Festival, and then we did a walking tour and our middle child was so tired, I didn't realize that she was sitting on a bench while he was talking. And all of a sudden, she started rolling down the street. I was like, what's happening? And she's goofy. She's the second child. But
Yeah.
we realized she fell asleep and rolled. So we laugh about the time that that child fell asleep on a walking tour. Like we have all these fun little insider experiences that are such a tender mercy, like as a mom, that I could never recreate those. And those are things they're going to remember forever. And we just the family time is amazing. That just the connections to what they've experienced and learned, those things together. Friends, they made friends. Our ward was amazing, but we made interesting friends in other places. So we were coming back from a train ride from Lyon, France, and we were sitting next to a lady who was coming from Spain. She was doing some kind of like yoga retreat, and she was going to Finland. That's where she lived. And we chatted with her. She has three daughters at home. Um, my girls made bracelets for her, like they were
Mhm.
beading bracelets and stuff, and gave her bracelets. They she had these beautiful shells from the beach in Spain, and my daughter said, "Oh, those are I can't remember what she said, unicorn wings." And she was just calling them something else. She's like, "Oh, I love the name of that." Well, I got her information. I've sent her Christmas cards. She's messaged me and said, "We have a house on our archipelago. You should come out." And showed me she had an art display at a gallery, and she had renamed all of her things unicorn wings or
Oh,
whatever. Like it was so cool to meet people and connect, like you said, just another person on the train. We were in London and we went to the temple, and my oldest went in to do baptisms, and I stayed with the youngers. And this mid 20-year-old girl that was working at the office there had guided us in where to stand or sit or whatever, while we're waiting for her in the temple. And the girls noticed she had different color nail polish, and they're like, "Oh, are you a Taylor Swift fan?" Because they had all those. And she's like, "I am, but I didn't finish the last three. I was going to do it on my lunch hour." So then she came in during her lunch hour and sat and ate and chatted with us. They were talking, and she shared her Christmas candy with us, like all these amazing things. We kept her information. We messaged her several times. Christmas, we got the girls tickets to see Taylor Swift in Amsterdam. And I told her, and she's like, "I would love to go. I don't have anybody to go." She flew over, met us in Amsterdam, stayed at our Airbnb. We did all kinds of fun things together. Just like it's just like we have these like really cool crossing our paths. And
yeah.
I just those things, I think my girls are like, I miss that. I miss those connections with people and just those experiences. They did take a dance class in Germany because they took a lot of dance before we left. And that was one of the things I said, okay, if we're gonna go over there, we definitely want to dance. So they took dance classes in German. They met friends. They did a beautiful ballet recital, which I mean, like it was amazing. Our landlord was fabulous. She had a little boy, so the girls played with the little boy, and we had a cat in our courtyard that they fell in love with. Like they just created all these like little relationships that I don't think we could ever have expected. And coming home is just like, what happened? All that was just taken out. And coming
Yes.
back, it's just one of those things where you're just like, I feel like I've never served a mission, but I could only imagine that that's got to be a feeling to some extent of like coming home, having connected with the people, falling in love with the culture, experiencing things I never thought I would experience, and now just kind of coming down from that high. And so I think that's why we've mourned it very much so and desire to go back. But we've sat there in our house before we left, and I said, you know what? I know we all want to come back, but I just wanted you to know that take this in, because even if we come back to visit or whether we come and stay again for sometimes, we'll never have it exactly how it is right now. You know, now is this is the blessing of now. And we can try to recreate it as much as we want, but it will never be the same. And that's
Yeah.
okay, because this is what we're given right now. And this is the blessings of right now. And we just have to treasure them in our hearts and not forget all the experiences and the blessings and the tender mercies and the people and all of those things that we've experienced. So
That
it's,
is so beautiful. Thank you. So are you guys trying to do another
I would
trip
love to.
anywhere or just not
Well,
quite yet?
we are we are hopeful. My husband changed jobs when he got back. Still a company that has some global connections, so we are hopeful. My I could see my sending my oldest over maybe a little bit more. She was able to go to an international FSY, and
Okay.
she made some amazing friends. We were in a
That's
German.
just a youth camp.
Yes, that is a youth camp. And so
Yeah.
it was cool because she got to go. And I think she said there was something like 30 countries represented. So many languages. And
Yes.
she's picked up a lot of language. She's got a musical ear, so she definitely has done that. And but she's made lifelong friends. And then we were in a German congregation in Stake, but we made a lot of friends with some of the military stakes
Yeah.
as well. In fact, before we left, she was able to enroll in in seminary there, which is like a high school aged Sunday school class that's every day. So she does Zoom with her friends still in Germany, and just would love to get her back there to keep those relationships going. She made a really interesting comment when she didn't want to come home, and she said, "Mom, it's so much harder to be a teen in the United States than it is in Germany or in Europe." And I thought that was really observant of her. She's like, you can be whoever you are there. They're not judgmental. They don't care if you're wearing the latest leggings or whatever the trend is, carrying a water bottle of some sort of brand or whatever, like she's like, it was refreshing because I could be me and I don't feel like I have
Oh,
to. And I could see this, like even the culture of around phones, cell phones. Um, you don't see them on any restaurant table. People do not take pictures in public because actually that's not allowed in Germany. Like obviously I'm a tourist, I'm gonna take some pictures, but you don't do that. You have to have like permission of the people. And even like if you walked up to a group of kids at church in the hall, nobody is holding their phone. Nobody's on their phone. Social media is not like what it is here. It was about being in person and being like connecting with those people. And so I could totally see what she was saying. And those kids are there because they want to be there. It's
right.
really, really interesting. Um, the stalwartness of those members. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. And so she's found some very, very good friends. And we're, as parents, just so grateful that she had that. And that made it even harder to come home. But
Yes.
she's made a point to stay connected. And she has late night seminary, 11 o'clock at night
Yeah.
on Wednesdays. So she doesn't do early morning, but it's great that she's able to still see them every week.
Oh, that's so neat. Ariane, thank you so much. This is so inspiring. I just love seeing, like, because we all homeschool for different reasons,
Mhm.
right? And then we all have a vision of something we want because this sounds so, it speaks so much to my heart. And I'm actually taking my daughter after she gets home from her mission. We're going to Europe. And it's just the two of us, right? And my one sister was like, shoot me now. That sounds so terrifying. And
Oh my
she's like, do you speak any of those languages? And I was like, no, but I know I'll figure it out, right? And so this doesn't have to be anybody else's dream, but I hope that this episode has inspired you to go after what you dream about. So it may not be travel. I know some people like to do the US
goodness.
and do an RV, right? And there are people in my membership have done this. I've had friends who have done this and like magical, amazing, all these beautiful experiences you can create. But maybe that's not your thing. Maybe it is like we want to be super amazing musicians. And like that's our homeschool dream
Yeah.
is to do these types of things. And so whatever it is, I love that you said you manifested it, right?
Yeah.
Because like that's been my dream too, is to do this, but with 7 kids you can imagine like I didn't have the budget for that. So we do have an RV, and so we did try to do some little stuff like that, and then I've been able to take one kid at a time somewhere and do little things like this, and eventually it'll just be George and me and probably a lot sooner. And I was like, let's go with dad, let's start tagging along and world schooling. And so I didn't get it with all 7, I couldn't have afforded it, right? And so I just love like putting it out there, like this is what I really want to create. And your school represented that, right? Studying Pompeii, studying different things, your family history, studying all of these amazing things, and then getting there and actually experiencing it is just so beautiful. So totally inspired me, makes me even more excited for my trip next month.
Can I come?
Yeah, seriously. You can actually, it was so cute. My brother offered to come. Like, I will pay for myself. And because he's a phenomenal tour guide, like, he calls it power tourism. And I go, yes, because he went to all these cities. They did the same thing. Like, they weren't homeschoolers, but they only had one kid there. Right. And so every weekend they went somewhere new. And so he's been to all the places we're going. And he's like, let me come. And I go, honestly, I would be okay with that. My daughter would kill you. So she just wants mom with like nobody else. Cause even dad, she said, no, he can't come either. Like, I just want my mom alone for a couple weeks. So,
And that's a testament of your relationship, which is awesome.
oh my gosh, I miss my girl so much. I'm like dying. So, anyway, we're super excited. So, thank you so much, Ariane, for coming on today and being super inspiring with all your awesome treasures that you gained over there. And I hope that this has inspired anybody else to go after what you want to create in your homeschool. So, have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you all next time.